Imagine boarding a plane, and suddenly a quiet passenger hands the flight attendant a note claiming he has a bomb. Hours later, that same man jumps out of the aircraft into the dark night with a suitcase full of money and disappears forever. No body, no confirmed identity, no arrest. More than 50 years later, investigators still don't know what really happened. But this is just one of the most chilling mysteries in criminal history. Across the world, there are crimes so strange, so perfectly executed, that even the most advanced investigations could not solve them. From cryptic letters sent by a killer who mocked the police to a hijacker who vanished into the night, these cases have confused detectives, journalists, and investigators for decades. And what makes them even more disturbing is that the people responsible may have never been caught. Today, we're diving deep into 5 of the most mysterious crimes ever recorded. Stories filled with clues, suspects, strange messages, and shocking twists. By the end of this video, you might even develop your own theory about what really happened. Let's begin. Throughout history, thousands of crimes have been solved thanks to evidence, witnesses, and modern forensic technology. But some cases refuse to give up their secrets. These investigations often start like any other crime. Police gather clues, question witnesses, and analyze the evidence. But sometimes the trail simply goes cold. No fingerprints, no clear suspects, no explanation. What remains is a puzzle that investigators try to piece together for years, sometimes decades. Unsolved crimes fascinate people because they leave questions hanging in the air. Who did it? Why did it happen? And how did someone manage to escape without leaving behind enough evidence to be caught? Some of these mysteries become legendary, inspiring books, documentaries, and endless debates among investigators and amateur detectives. The stories you're about to hear are among the most famous examples. Each case shocked the world, triggered massive investigations, and yet somehow ended without a clear answer. And the deeper you look into these cases, the stranger they become. Our first mystery involves a man who boarded a plane in 1971 and pulled off one of the most daring crimes in aviation history. On November 24th, 1971, a man using the name Dan Cooper purchased a one-way airline ticket from Portland to Seattle. He looked completely ordinary, wearing a business suit, dark sunglasses, and carrying a briefcase. He boarded the plane without drawing any attention. But shortly after takeoff, he quietly handed a note to a flight attendant. At first, she assumed it was a phone number from a passenger trying to flirt with her. But the man leaned closer and calmly said something that changed everything. "You'd better read that note. I have a bomb." Inside the briefcase were wires and red cylinders that looked exactly like explosives. The passenger demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. If his demand were not met, he warned the bomb would destroy the plane. The crew immediately informed the authorities, and the plane was allowed to land in Seattle while the passengers remained unaware of what was happening. Soon, the money and parachutes were delivered. But what happened next turned this crime into one of the greatest mysteries in history. After receiving the money, the mysterious hijacker allowed all passengers to leave the aircraft. Only the crew remained on board. Then he ordered the pilots to take off again, this time flying toward Mexico at a low altitude. During the flight, the man strapped the parachute to his back and tied the bag of money to his body. The weather outside was terrible. Heavy rain, strong winds, darkness everywhere. Yet none of that seemed to worry him. Somewhere over the forests of the Pacific Northwest, the hijacker opened the rear stairs of the plane. Then he did something almost unbelievable. He jumped into the night with $200,000 in cash. Search teams later combed the forest for weeks. Helicopters scanned the area, and investigators interviewed hundreds of suspects. But the mysterious hijacker had vanished completely. To this day, nobody knows for sure whether he survived or who he really was. Years passed with almost no progress in the investigation of the mysterious hijacker connected to the D.B. Cooper hijacking. Many investigators believe the man likely died during the jump. The weather was freezing, the terrain was dangerous, and parachuting at night into dense forest would be extremely difficult even for an expert. But in 1980, nearly 9 years later, a young boy made a shocking discovery while playing near the Columbia River. Buried in the sand were 3 bundles of cash. The serial numbers on the bills matched the ransom money given to the hijacker. The discovery raised even more questions. If the hijacker died, how did the money end up in the river? And if he survived, why would he lose part of the ransom? Despite decades of investigation and thousands of suspects being examined, the true identity of the hijacker remains unknown. Even today, the mystery continues to fascinate investigators and amateur detectives around the world. While investigators were still puzzled by the airplane mystery, another terrifying case was unfolding in California during the late 1960s. A serial killer began attacking couples in remote areas, leaving behind almost no evidence. What made the case even stranger was that the killer began sending letters to newspapers. In those messages, he mocked police and claimed responsibility for the crimes. The killer called himself the Zodiac. These letters contained cryptic symbols and coded messages that investigators struggled to decode. The case would later become known as the Zodiac Killer murders, one of the most famous unsolved murder cases in American history. But the most chilling part of the mystery was still to come. The Zodiac Killer did not simply commit crimes and disappear. Instead, he seemed to enjoy the attention and fear he created. Letters arrived at newspaper offices containing coded messages that he claimed would reveal his identity. One cipher contained hundreds of strange symbols. Amateur codebreakers and professional cryptographers spent years trying to solve it. Eventually, one of the ciphers was decoded, revealing a disturbing message where the killer bragged about his crimes. But the most important detail was missing. The message did not reveal his name. Despite multiple suspects being investigated over the decades, police have never been able to prove who the Zodiac Killer really was. Witnesses described the Zodiac as an ordinary-looking man. He was not particularly tall or unusual. This made it even harder for investigators to identify him among thousands of potential suspects. In one chilling attack, the killer even spoke directly to victims before striking. He calmly explained that he had escaped from prison and needed their car. Moments later, the situation turned deadly. The killer vanished once again, leaving police with very little evidence. The investigation continues even today, but the identity of the Zodiac Killer remains a mystery. Another mystery that stunned investigators involved the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Hoffa was one of the most powerful labor leaders in the United States. But in July 1975, he suddenly vanished after leaving his home to attend a meeting. He was last seen in the parking lot of a restaurant. Then he disappeared completely. No confirmed sightings, no body, no clear evidence. The case quickly became one of the most famous missing person investigations in American history. Investigators searched for years, trying to discover what happened to Hoffa. There were rumors that organized crime figures were involved, but no evidence was strong enough to lead to a conviction. Many theories emerged. Some believed he was buried beneath buildings. Others claimed his remains were hidden in remote areas. Despite numerous excavations and investigations, the truth remains unknown. Hoffa was eventually declared legally dead, but the mystery surrounding his disappearance still fuels debates today. Before the famous airplane case involving D.B. Cooper hijacking, there were already several daring aviation crimes. But none captured the public imagination quite like the Cooper mystery. Investigators later discovered that the hijacker had carefully planned the entire operation. He understood aircraft design and knew exactly how to escape using the rear staircase. This level of planning suggested that he may have had aviation or military experience. Yet even with this clue, investigators were never able to confirm his identity. Over the years, hundreds of suspects were examined in connection with the Cooper hijacking. Some people even claimed they were the mysterious hijacker themselves. But none of these claims could be proven. Investigators compared fingerprints, handwriting samples, and DNA evidence. Still, no match was confirmed. Eventually, the case became one of the most legendary unsolved crimes in modern history. Because these crimes were never solved, theories began spreading everywhere. Some people believe the hijacker survived and lived the rest of his life in secret. Others believe he died during the jump and was never discovered. The Zodiac case produced even more theories, with countless suspects being discussed over the decades. Without definitive evidence, the truth remains hidden. And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps these mysteries alive. Even with modern forensic science, not every crime can be solved. Evidence may disappear. Witnesses may forget important details. Sometimes criminals simply get lucky. When a case goes cold, investigators may revisit it years later with new technology. But sometimes, even that is not enough. Today, advanced technology, such as DNA databases and digital analysis, helps investigators solve cases that were once considered impossible. Some cold cases have been solved decades later, thanks to these new tools. But mysteries like the Zodiac and Cooper cases remain stubbornly unsolved. Investigators continue studying the evidence in hopes that one day a breakthrough will occur. Even after decades, investigators have not given up hope. Cold case teams continue reviewing old evidence using new forensic methods. Sometimes a single clue can reopen an entire investigation. Perhaps someday, new evidence will reveal the truth behind these crimes. Until then, these mysteries remain part of criminal history. The stories you heard today remind us that not every mystery has an easy answer. From the daring skyjacker of the D.B. Cooper hijacking to the terrifying messages of the Zodiac Killer murders and the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, these cases continue to puzzle investigators around the world. Maybe one day the truth will finally be discovered. But until that moment arrives, these crimes remain some of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries in history. And perhaps the next clue is still waiting to be found.